Hey Carmen. I this afternoon I realized that I hadn't done video blogs for um, for our classes that got canceled because of snow. I was like, could it snow like any other day? That would be better for me. Um, I'd rather miss my other classes. And I just got back from Chicago. I was visiting a close friend from undergrad over break. He's finishing his MFA at School of the Art Institute, and it's a private school. We're public school babies, but he got like a pretty okay scholarship that covered a lot of tuition and everything, but he hates it. Coming from like public school in North Carolina to like a major city private school is like a type of culture shock for sure. And he's really struggled to like balance any type of like self-care or like activism, which he likes to do, to stay sane in a increasingly terrifying world. He hasn't figured out any way to like balance any of that stuff, so he's been struggling, and it's his last semester, and we got to spend some time together and do some writing, and he's always been my first person I like send my poetry to because I love his work and he's a smart reader. And when I traveled back to New York from Chicago, I just like did not give myself enough time to recover. I think I felt like guilty taking an extra day. Like I should be able to just like get right back into it. So we got back late last Tuesday and went to work on Wednesday afternoon. And like by the time I was done with work, I had like a hellish fever, and like my whole body felt like it was being like squeezed in a I don't know, like a pressure cooker type of feeling. Not great. So I stayed home for most of Thursday and most of Friday, and I'm still kind of like in recovery mode. I just got back from seeing my massage therapist for the first time since I've been back in the city. They were like, oh my God, you really needed this massage. I was like, yeah. I said, think what it's like to live in this body all the time. I'm also coloring my hair. A girl's got to have her beauty routines. But while I was in Chicago, I realized I was like talking about school and talking about like making it through grad school, being like a radical white person, with my friend who's also like a radical white queer person. And he's also like pretty gender nonconforming, like wears makeup, nail polish, skirts. So we have a lot of identity overlaps in terms of like our experiences as like activists and trying to not lose our shit. But I found that as I was talking to him about grad school and about surviving there, I kept bringing up your class and talking about my colleagues in the class and talking about you as like our facilitator and the way that you are like not interested in like the tiny authority space of our classroom. Like you're not trying to like trick us with power games and like, I don't know. I was thinking about like post-humanism, to take it back a few weeks. and how that kind of ethos shows up in academic classrooms, and like how if we're embracing like a post-human philosophy about like or epistemology about like what the fuck is going on at all, then I like really worry about my ability to make it through the very few classes I have remaining. Because it seems to me that like the body doesn't have a place in the post-human. Part of the point of it, I think, is to shed the body or try to like prioritize the mind, the rational mind. But I can't do that, and I know from my experiences in undergrad and getting my master's and being in a couple classes with you now, like that it's available to me, like spaces that aren't obsessed with like the grad school fantasy where I should be able to not have a job and like ignore my like body needs in order to like be studious all the time. I like see that it a type of scholarship and like of being a graduate studentness is available, if still like really discounted and maybe even marginalized. But I find myself having to do so much work in my other classes to like correct people constantly about all kinds of shit. But even just like little stuff like talking about peer-reviewed journals as having blind peer review, and being like, hey, actually I've heard another term used, anonymous, which like doesn't use someone's body, someone's blind body as a metaphor for a procedure or a set of protocols. And you know, some people are super responsive to that, and some people are put off by it, and like I don't care about that latter group. But it's to just have to remind people of the existence of the body and like ways in which bodies are marked and rendered marginal all the time by like sets of like cultural semiotics and sets of like moralistic and value systems, sets of like capitalist depictions of like productivity that we all buy into in graduate school, and embracing that kind of like production model of graduate school. Like it's just very hard to have to sit in a room with people who like don't consider their bodies at all, and these are like people of a lot of like diverse, I don't know, experiences. Like there's elders in the class, there's like people who have probably had way more of these experiences than me, as like Black women or like queer women of color. But they like wanna, I don't know, there's like this whole vibe of like wanting to learn, which I don't care. I don't care about that. It's arrogant maybe. I felt like going into the PhD, there's like not a ton that I want to learn from the faculty in our department. and from most of the people that I'm in classes with. That's always been true for me though, and like that's why I did not do well in undergrad. Because like I was being taught at a big state school by by grad students who were like paralyzed with fear. I just did it. You see how easy it is? Paralyzed. They were not paralyzed with fear. They were like fucking terrified of having to defend their own research claims. Like one grad student assigned us a text written by his dissertation advisor. Stupid move, first of all. And I was like, yeah, this text is fucking ridiculous. Like, I don't remember what it was about, but it was like a poli-sci 101 over the summer. This motherfucking instructor really thought he knew all his shit. And I was like, hey, have you ever thought about like, I don't know, queer people or like women or I don't know, like black people and how they're like affected by this shit? He lost his mind. He was beside himself with rage. He screamed at me in class. I kind of blocked out for a lot of that time because this would happen so often. Like I would just be like, I don't get why we're not talking about these other things. People like wig out. But I was like, oh my God, they're gonna keep doing this. Like this is gonna keep happening. And like inevitably I ended up in graduate school because I don't know what else I can do with my body and my brain. And I'm facing so much of the same stuff, only now these folks are like supposed to be my peers. I don't think of them as my peers. I just don't. I think of people in our class, activist, intersectionality and activist methodologies in the Black Lives Matter era. Is that it? I think that's it. I think of all of them as at least peers, if not like elders or I think of them as Pritchard in Fashioning Lives, which I'm reading, which is amazing, has these 3 categories of like ways of finding histories and connecting to histories through literacy, like through characters, through individuals. And the 3 categories he talks about are ancestors, elders, and fictive kin. Fictive kin can be like fictional characters, or they can be like people that you like include in your family. And y'all aren't related. In some ways, I think of the people, my colleagues in your class as like fictive kin and elders, because I feel like there's so much, like they come in with stories about their own lives or about their experiences as scholars, and they're like things that I have suspected to be true, but that like hearing from them feels really validating and feels really like this is what I need to continue to hold space for in like my own version of like finding a historical or at least historicized like space for my work and for like my role as a scholar. I'm super grateful for that space, and like it's keeping my head in the game, so to speak. I have a lot of feelings about it. I'll save some for Wednesday. Thanks for watching my video. I'll see you tomorrow. It's Sunday night. I'll see you tomorrow. Off blonde hair. It's gonna be amazing.